tries to get beyond the immediate sensations of the present and grasp and serve some larger or more lasting goal. Each of them tries to salvage something from the wreck of time. But theater does it too, and does so in a way I find uniquely fascinating. Theater occurs, and I insist on the verb occurs rather than the verb is. Theater is an event, not an object. Theater occurs when one or more persons present themselves in action or speech, or both, usually both, present themselves as objects of attention for other people. This self-presentation usually occurs under certain physical and intellectual conventions embodied in a theater space. Although there have been a great variety of theater spaces over the history of humankind, and such spaces can be improvised for a special occasion as well as designed for repeated use. The things that these self-presentational people do relate to life in a variety of ways. They may seek mimetically to imitate ordinary life as we perceive it, or they may reformulate life in a whole range of metaphorical ways. They range from solemn ritual in the presence of a god, as in the case of Greek tragedy, through literal realism, as in the earliest plays of O'Neill, to the circus antics of traveling clowns. But there are certain things that remain constant, that theater occurs in a particular place and time, and that the people are actually present one to another. Now that means that the theatrical effort to salvage something from the wreck of time takes place very much within time. Religious worship may be conducted in relation to gods who never appear in person to the worshipper, and historical and philosophical inquiry happen largely in mental space. They are practiced by solitary reading and reflection. But theatrical action is definitely here and now, occurring under particular temporal and physical circumstances. Now, of course, all art is definitely here and now. That's what art is, a series of embodiments in paint, in stone, in print. But theater depends more than the other arts do on immediate presence. A painting or a statue goes on serenely existing even when the museum is shut. A theatrical performance cannot occur without an audience. A theatrical performance without an audience may be a useful rehearsal, but it isn't a completed artistic act because it isn't interacting with spectators. And even in a rehearsal, the performers are interacting with one or more spectators, the director and the other theatrical personnel who are seated out in the house watching them work. And to take it from the opposite point of view, in theater, not only must the audience be present, but also the performers must be physically present. You can look at paintings and sculptures whose creators are no longer alive. And of course you can go to a Shakespeare play, even though Shakespeare's bones have long since turned to dust. But the performers have to be alive and kicking. That is, theater is a social event. But the subject matter of theater, the things dealt with by the words and actions of the performers, those need not be present things. The action may concern things far away or long ago. It may be a matter of fantasy, like Peter Pan, or allegorical abstraction, like Everyman, things that never could exist concretely. For me, theater is an exciting art because it combines an enormously broad scope of possible reference with the dense particularity of physical presence. The theatrical event is the act of incarnation. Distant and general things are made present and moving. And I mean moving not only physically, but moving, of course, emotionally, too. Now, the British have had a particularly rich theatrical tradition. From the Middle Ages to the present, theater has been almost continuously part of their cultural and social life, with an especially distinguished stretch of achievement around the turn of the 16th century with the works of Shakespeare. Despite some subsequent stretches of very mediocre playwriting, the institution of theater has generally flourished in London. Indeed, the achievement of Shakespeare has helped to guarantee the continuation of English theater. Even in decades of weak playwriting, the actors can always go on reviving Shakespeare. And this tradition applies also